Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to Addressing Youth Unemployment in Ontario, Supporting the Next Generation, hosted by ICTC and eCampusOntario. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the land on which we live and work. I am based in Ottawa, Ontario, which is situated on unceded Anishinaabe-Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia, and their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. We honor the peoples and land of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin Nation and all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and their valuable past and present contributions. The offices of eCampusOntario, located in downtown Toronto, are within the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Today, gathered in this digital space, we invite you to take a moment to reflect on the traditional, ancestral, unceded Inuit, Métis, and First Nations territories on which you are settled. My name is Carly Reynolds. I am the Digital Marketing and Events Coordinator at the Information and Communications Technology Council, or ICTC, and I have the role of kicking us off today. Feel free to drop a message in the chat to tell us what city you're tuning in from today, and while you are doing that, I'm going to launch a welcome poll so we can get a better sense of who you are. It should be appearing on your screen now, and I will reveal the results in a few moments. If you are new to ICTC's work, ICTC is a neutral, not-for-profit national center of expertise with the mission of strengthening Canada's digital advantage in the global economy. For over 30 years, we have delivered forward-looking research, practical policy advice, and capacity-building solutions for individuals and businesses. Our goal is to ensure that technology is utilized to drive economic growth and innovation, and that Canada's workforce remains competitive on a global scale. This webinar is hosted in partnership with eCampusOntario, which is a not-for-profit organization funded by the Ministry of Colleges and Universities that supports innovation, collaboration, and digital by design education in Ontario's colleges, Indigenous institutes, and universities. They provide the sector with platforms, programs, and services to advance digital participation in post-secondary education, connecting Ontario's post-secondary institutions and learners to the future of learning and work. Together, we are here to take a deep dive into youth unemployment, so we will unpack ICTC's latest research on the subject. We will have a discussion on how this is playing out within Ontario's labor market, and we will explore work-integrated learning, or WIL, as a possible solution. As foreshadowed by the poll, this webinar is live and meant to be interactive, so we encourage you to use the chat or Q&A functions to ask questions. I know some of you also submitted questions in advance, and we will when you leave the webinar, there is a short optional exit survey. If we don't get to your question live, we will reach out to you with an answer in follow-up. This event is being recorded, and we will share the presentation with you following the session. I'm going to end the poll. Okay, I just closed the poll and the results should be sharing with you now. Interesting to see this distribution of organizational backgrounds on the call today. Lots of folks from post-secondary institutions. And interesting to see a number of you are unfamiliar with the term labor market scarring. Maybe our next speaker can define that term in his presentation. So I will pass things over to that speaker, ICT's Senior Research and Policy Analyst, Eric Henningsmoen. Eric's research at ICTC focuses on digital talent and workforce development, AI compute and digital infrastructure, and Canada's semiconductor industry. He is the co-author of the ICTC report, Youth Unemployment in Canada, the Role of Work-Integrated Learning in Building Resilient Careers. Take it away, Eric.
Thank you so much, Carly. So The topic of youth unemployment, as I'm sure you're have all seen in the media and whatnot, it's gained a lot of attention in the media policy and business communities over 2025 and into 2026. And indeed, Ontario's young people and recent graduates entering the labor market face a challenging economic situation right now. It's not just media hype. So, to explore this issue, ICTC carried out research to better understand youth unemployment in Canada, its negative downstream effects, often referred to as labor market scarring, and I'll dig into that a little more in a few slides, as well as assess the potential for work integrated learning or WIL programs, such as internships, co-op placements, apprenticeships, as a tool to at least partially remedy the situation. So today I'm going to go over some of our analysis on this issue with a focus on Ontario. Oh, there it goes. It's just been a little slow. So, as mentioned, the youth unemployment issue in Ontario and throughout Canada isn't just a media story. It's data from Statistics Canada speak to this upsurge in youth unemployment over and above already heightened rates of general unemployment in Ontario. So, see in this graph, youth unemployment, which is that dark blue line up way up top there, is up over and above the core workforce in Ontario, those age 15 to 64 years, as well as the established workforce of people 25 plus years old. So, throughout 2025, youth unemployment in Ontario has moved between 15 and 18%. So, almost double the regular workforce. And when we compare Canada as a whole to Ontario's youth unemployment rate, on average, it's about 2% higher throughout 2025. Though Ontario's youth unemployment rate has been higher relative to the Canadian average over recent years. And then when we look at Canadian NEET rates, so that is youth not in employment, education, or training. This has also begun trending upwards since the peaking during the pandemic. So rising NEET rates can indicate worsening economic conditions, especially amongst younger workers and young people, and highlights issues of intergenerational fairness and social marginalization. And higher increasing NEET rates can also reflect inefficient use of human capital within the Canadian economy and can be harmful for national economic productivity in both the short and long term. And then when we look at also the summer job market last year in 2025, Ontario students re returning to their post-secondary studies and seeking jobs throughout the summer months face a difficult time finding those jobs. So this chart shows unemployment rate of Ontario students who sought work over the summer of 2025, but were unable to find a job and then who returned to school full time the following September. So again, when compared to Canada whole, Ontario returning students have faced higher rates of unemployment in the summer job market. And while student unemployment is lower than the spike we saw during the pandemic years, it is still reaching heights we last seen during the 2008 financial crisis and the economic slowdown in 2012. And these summer jobs are important. They can help students finance their next year of studies, and they can also be critical to helping students gain valuable work experience, helping them attain employment post graduation. So, and well, get into labor market scarring now. So, young people they graduate from post secondary. They're unable to find a job. That's not just a short-term economic issue for them, and like it's actually a long-term issue that can affect them for many years. And heightened rates of youth unemployment have important effects on the health of Ontario's workforce downstream for a decade or more. So we often refer to this idea of this kind of long-term damage to the workforce and the economic prospects of young people graduating during a downturn like a recession is labor market scarring. Graduates who face the challenge of entering the workforce during a recession often face long-term, multi-year adverse effects on their career path, wage earnings, and even their future health and well-being. And research suggests those facing labor market scarring due to entering the job market during an economic downturn will experience reduced initial wages, slower career progression over time, lower overall job quality, and economics research on labor market scarring suggests that graduating during a recession can reduce a cohort's average wages by 9% and lead to suppressed wages for a decade. So again, it's not a short-term setback income thing for people. It can, be a shadow on their lives for many years if they can't get into the workforce quickly after graduation. Research also suggests that cohorts of young people graduating during recession may, on average, face poor health outcomes and health behaviors later in life, have lower rates of family formation and higher rates of divorce, and that's years after entering the labor market. In terms of why this is taking place, the OECD suggests there's four mechanisms that are driving labor market scarring. First, human capital destruction. This is where recent graduates spending time unemployed or underemployed during an economic downturn miss out on key workplace learning and development opportunities, hindering their long-term growth. There's bad matching, so that's where recent graduates entering the labor market during bad economic times find suboptimal fits for employment in terms of their education, training, interest, and aptitude, and therefore face delayed career advancement. Their structural skills mismatch. That's where recent graduates, particularly those graduating from programs aligned with specific jobs or industries, enter the labor market during in industry downturn and find that the skills and knowledge they acquire during their education programs no longer meet the needs of the contemporary economy, as entire industries get permanently disrupted. This structural skills mismatch is an important scarring mechanism to ponder as we grapple with the issue of AI and the labor market effects in Canada. And then there's psychosocial scarring and signaling effects. This is where recent graduates seek employment during economic downturn, reduce their early career ambitions, accept lower paying or misaligned jobs. And conversely, employers may interpret a graduate's failure to obtain employment quickly post-graduation as a negative signal regarding the graduate's employability and professional potential. So, is there a way to fix this? So, we suggest that work integrating learning programs or those internships, practicums, apprenticeships, and co-op placements can offer at least a partial remedy to combating worsening youth unemployment and labor market scarring risks faced by the current cohort of young people and recent graduates. Students graduating for a WIL program tend to have higher post-grad incomes compared to the peers who did not participate in WIL, are more likely to work in jobs related to their education, improve their professional skills and confidence, and are less likely to be in a role they're overqualified for. Systematically, WIL programs can help the Canadian economy allocate human capital more efficiently. And all the labor market scarring mechanisms that we discussed earlier can at least be partially counteracted by participating in a WIL program. So uh, that can counteract human capital destruction by helping students apply their skills in a real world employment context and begin that advancement on the career ladder. It can reduce the risk of bad matching by giving students an opportunity to experience employment in their field of study, as well as give employers the opportunity to evaluate a student in a lower stakes employment context than if they are hired for a permanent position. It can, during cases of structural unemployment, so an entire industry faces a downturn. WIL programs can help students entering into a declining industry an opportunity to gain practical experience and move laterally into an adjacent industry with better employment prospects. And then when we think about psychosocial scarring and signaling effects, completing a WIL program, for example, a co-op, could help signal a student's employability while also helping a student increase his or her confidence on the job. And ICTC's own data bears this out. So we did a long-range survey of its WIL program participants between 2020 and 2023 across Canada. 93% of the participants reported to have been working by the time they took the survey, and 71% reported to being employed full-time or part-time post-graduation. Only 9% reported to be struggling to find work, so a little lower than the overall rate of youth unemployment. 58% of respondents holding full or part-time jobs reported to have secured the job directly because of an ICTC WIL program, with 31% landing a job with the employer they actually did WIL with, and a further 27% getting employed with a different employer, but because of that experience they gained during their co-op placement. Furthermore, 25% of the respondents landed a postgraduate role because of other WIL programs they participated in. So they took an ICTC WIL program, and often they'll take another WIL program, maybe through their college or university, and that helped them. So that just like speaks to the power of thoughtful and well um, structured WIL programming. So expanding WIL programming to make it more widely available to Canadian students, new grads, and job seekers could help combat heightened youth unemployment as well as counteract the negative downstream labor market scarring effects we're talking about earlier. And then finally, for our research, we just started talking about what could like a national framework for a Canadian WIL programming look like, and we came up with this like collaborative model. So and it looks at different stakeholders and like what role they might be able to play in WIL. So you have the government, which can act as a funder, fund WIL programming through things like wage subsidies, grants for supplementary training as students are going through their WIL program, program administration and research and program evaluation to make sure things stay on track and they're effective as possible. Employers, they're the placement providers, provide ongoing WIL placements. So the apprenticeships, co-ops, internship positions, practicums, and then collaborate with post-secondaries and other stakeholders and like be active participants. Post-secondaries, the program providers, offer WIL programming relevant and accessible students to pursuing programs across the institution. Sometimes we just think about WIL as a thing engineering students do or other or business students do, but there's room for creative arts, liberal arts, everyone across campus. If I were a student today or advising a student, I would say almost definitely take a WIL program, no matter what you want to do, if it's out there and it's offered to you. Post-secondaries can also promote WIL programming and its importance to postgraduate employment outcomes to students and other institutional stakeholders, for example, funders or alumni, and just show the how powerful this can be as helping students with their employment outcomes post-graduation. Also develop sustainable employer partnerships at the local, provincial, and national levels as appropriate, and monitor and evaluate campus WIL programming effectiveness. Civil society and nonprofits, they can act as conveners and program innovators, collaborating with post-secondaries and employers and government to advocate for WIL programming, administer national and sector-specific cross-institutional WIL programs and funding, so work across universities on larger WIL initiatives. Develop best practices, research, and public policy leadership on WIL programming, and carry out research and systematic evaluation of WIL programming nationally. And then there's the students themselves. They need to seek relevant WIL placements during their post-secondary studies, actively learn and work hard during their WIL placements, and strive to integrate skills and theoretical knowledge and learned during their academic programs into that employment context during a WIL placement. So, if that all sounded good and you're interested in learning more or taking a look at our report we did, it's on our website and there's a QR code right there. And I'll turn it over now to Carly, who will introduce our uh, fireside chat.
Thanks, Eric. That research is so valuable. Thank you so much for clarifying the distinction between youth unemployment in Ontario versus all of Canada. As Eric noted, if you scan that QR code on screen now, it'll take you to the full report. We also have lots of other research and policy briefs on our website, including reporting on AI and employment trends. So lots to explore there. Now I am delighted to introduce the next segment and our next speakers who will facilitate this discussion. First, Iman Yahweh is ICTC Senior Director of Industry and Ecosystem Engagement. Iman oversees a national outreach team at ICTC, supporting initiatives that empower talent development and connect Canadian businesses with opportunities to thrive in Canada's digital economy. Iman has over a decade of experience in academia, industry, and government, driving innovation and economic growth in Canada. With a PhD in electrical engineering, Iman has a career spanning strategic partnerships, program development, and business growth. Iman has contributed to advancing key sectors such as AI, clean tech, and advanced manufacturing in Canada. Joining Iman in this discussion, I am also excited to welcome Nancy Cummings, the Partnerships Lead at eCampusOntario. Nancy holds an undergraduate degree in Applied Biomolecular Sciences and a master's degree in biology from Lakehead University, as well as a diploma in culinary management from Confederation College. In addition to a diverse educational background, Nancy brings a wealth of experience to the role, having worked in trades, industry, and research, giving her a unique perspective to connect with a wide variety of stakeholders across the innovation ecosystem. Welcome, Nancy and Iman. I'll let you take the discussion from here.
Thanks so much, Carly. I do appreciate that. So I think the first part of the format, I'm going to do it a little bit interview style with Iman, and then we're going to flip the tables in the second half. And I'm going to dive right into it. It sounds like, based on the research that ICTC has done, it's really makes a lot of sense why Ontario should care so much about why young and how young people start off their career. Having started off my own career really young, I know how important it is to get your foot in the door. Without that experience in various sectors and ability to connect with the business and industry sector, it's really difficult to even find another job. It's often down to who you know and not what you know. And that's just sort of the reality of how hiring happens. But Iman, what sectors in Ontario have you seen that are seeing the biggest challenges right now, and how are these shifts affecting youth unemployment prospects?
Absolutely. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. In answering all the questions, just wanted to basically set some baselines. I come from obviously ICTC, and my approach to many of these questions does have a digital technologies undertone to them simply because of the nature of our organization, information and communication technologies. There is a lot of notions around AI, but I just wanted to stress that in working across the ecosystem with many colleagues across different sectoral organizations, I have been able to basically corroborate a lot of these presumptions and a lot of these studies across different sectors. So, with that, and to answer your question, Nancy, the biggest shift that we see across sectors in Ontario and biggest changes, first and foremost, I wanted to stress that there are mostly structural changes, not cyclical changes, because historically we do see a lot of changes that go up and down and a rebound. But in the age of digital transformation boosted by AI, we see a lot of industries, a lot of sectors are going through structural changes. These changes are most significant if I wanted to pinpoint a particular group of sectors. They're more significant where digital infrastructure and AI are becoming core operating principles and systems, not just add-ons, essentially. I'm not talking about AI first businesses. I'm talking about businesses where digital transformation, digital infrastructure, and particularly AI come to shift and change operating systems. And with that in mind, obviously, we could think about advanced manufacturing, automotive sector, telecom, finance, and healthcare, as well as logistics, if I wanted to pinpoint a few in Ontario as one are rapidly undergoing some changes. For example, our LMI data, labor market intelligence, shows especially strong growth in AI infrastructure and applied digital roles, including that of computer systems developers, software engineers, telecommunication equipment specialists, and industrial design roles. Now, how does that impact particularly youth? Because if you look at the indicators in the market, for example, just in December 2025, natural and applied sciences roles accounted for nearly 2,500 AI-related postings. So one would argue it's a hot market, then shouldn't be any issues for those new entrants to the market. The problem though is the industry skills expectation for industry for entry level roles is also rising, and it has changed essentially. So if you look across many of these rich job postings as a youth, the challenge is that these are not jobs that you can step into cold. So in addition to some hands-on skills and experience where you can gather through will, but these days, for example, some baseline understanding of will is almost a must. Most industries do require that, and that's the major barrier that we see in these six sectors.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we've heard across the board at eCampus. Our foundations is in digital transformation, and watching that happen over the last decade has really been a shift that we've seen on our side as well. On the flip side of that, though, are you seeing any emerging sectors that are offering promising opportunities for youth unemployment in the future?
Absolutely. So it basically goes both ways, as I mentioned. So as AI, as digital transformation comes to disrupt cross sectors essentially, it then also comes with opportunities across sectors. So if I wanted to limit it even to AI, AI comes with AI infrastructure and a whole lot of AI adjacent roles. Thinking semiconductors, cloud, telecom, systems engineering, roles that might be supporting AI compute, all the way to the construction of the compute enterprise and infrastructure. In some categories, we've seen 100% year-over-year increase. So there is opportunity. Coming out of that, and the digital disruption can impact other sectors. You can look at auto sector, manufacturing, finance, and pharmaceuticals as well. And what's important is that for many of these segments and sectors, industry is not looking to recruit from computer science anymore or from core AI skills. These are all digital adjacent skills, meaning if you're placed within the right environments, gain the necessary business skills, layered up with AI understanding and AI literacy, that already boosts your chances tenfold, essentially.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As things get shaken up, new opportunities emerge in any sector. So, given that this strong impact that ICTC studies showed about going through well programmings, I think the number was 30% of participants in ICTC programs landed a job at their co-op. Are there elements that you can kind of highlight that make a really quality will opportunity?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one we grapple with on an ongoing basis. For context, my team basically manages the delivery of our role portfolio across Canada, directly interacting with about 6,000 businesses, most of whom SMEs, also with business networks in the process of delivering will to our students. If I wanted to summarize that for the youth in the audience, for the students, also for academia and employers, like what would constitute a potentially successful will placement experience, I would categorize four key characteristics essentially. One is meaningful work. A goodwill opportunity should basically give a students ownership of real deliverables and not just shadowing. We've seen both essentially. So that's the first element. As a student, if you're looking at a job description, you have to also ask what portion of these activities do I own and will be my deliverable. The other thing is clear scoping and supervision on the part of the business. So as a business, you need to be ready to absorb these individuals, supervise them, and you need to define your project deliverables and scope the project in a way that is meaningfully deliverables within the scope of the timeline, as and you have the capacity to absorb as well. The other element is basically treating these students as real employees as well and exposing them to the current tools, to the workflows of your business, as opposed to having to work in silos from the actual basically action of the business. That's another important metric for us essentially when the students are deeply integrated into the activities, the day-to-day activities of the businesses, and they are exposed to the tools. That's recipe often for success. And lastly, we see a lot of positive outcomes where businesses are looking at will as an intentional pathway to employment, as opposed to a one-off engagement, as opposed to bring on a student to do something on the side. They would rather plan their will activities as a way to test potential future employees, essentially. And often these are the ones who are among those one third that lead to full-time employment, Nancy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know from my own background, the places where that I've learned the most have been places where I've been given responsibilities and I'm integrated into the actual workflow and I actually understand what's going on. It's really difficult to stay engaged if you're just sort of shadowing somebody through a job. But maybe we can make it a little bit more real. Is there a particular story that you have about a successful partnership between students, employers, and SWIP funding that has helped a youth transition into the workforce? Like, is there an example you can give us where you've seen this happen?
Oh, absolutely. Of course, being ICTC, there is a ton of AI core, AI first, digital first projects in fintech, in advanced areas, in semiconductors. But one that I was thinking about this for today, and one that actually popped, no pun intended, is a story of a popcorn company, actually. So I thought I would use this one because it makes it a lot more tangible. That when we're talking AI, when we're talking digital skills, when we're talking work integrated learning, we're not necessarily talking about machine learning, for example, or large language models in a tech company. This is something that we actually, by the way, just published in BetaKit. Actually, BetaKit did a piece on this one to highlight and showcase. It's for a company called Eatable, right here in Vaughan, actually, near where I live. It's producing a specific line of popcorns, essentially, that are available in more than 1,600 vendor locations right now. So it's no longer a boutique startup model. They started using our programming essentially by bringing on students, following a bit of a more traditional co-op mentality that goes, yeah, there's a side project, we'll just give to this student and see what happens. But then we saw actually, we observe how they gradually move towards basically utilizing their students in a way that meets all those four key elements that I just mentioned, gave them ownership of work, defined the scope properly, integrated them in the actual lines of business that they were doing, put them in front of the vendors, in front of the customers, involved them in business planning. They brought in folks to manage their digital marketing strategies based upon AI, for example. But then soon, many of those students grew to be part of the decision-making process for expansions to new vendors, essentially, and new markets. Time that the founders gave to these students. So it wasn't just exposure to business, but it was also exposure to founders. That was a key differentiator. And they ended up hiring many of these students who helped them essentially grow from just an idea in the kitchen between a couple to a brand that is now carried in more than 1,600 vendor locations. So there are plenty of these examples. I invite you guys to look it up on BetaKit. It's fairly recent. All the way from there to automated manufacturing to core AI and fintech, you can find these examples.
I think it's a great example. It's a lot of a lot of the time I think we pigeonhole ourselves when we talk about AI and we think of those large language models or digital or tech or fintech. And yeah, it's being applied across the board in all kinds of areas. It's really interesting to see. I love popcorn, so that one speaks to my soul. Um, I know that sometimes when we talk to employers, though, there's challenges and concerns with doing well. Are there common concerns or pain points that you hear raised about doing work integrated learning among employers?
So where do I begin? So there's definitely a plethora of concerns, and if you're an employer in the audience, it might actually resonate with you. I'm going to go through them very quickly, but then I'm going to land on what I think would be the most common, the common denominator, essentially. Of course, finances are usually important. Many of the wage subsidy programs, will programs, internship programs do require financial contribution from the employers as well. At least our programming is all a paid subsidy, essentially. So that offers some challenge for smaller businesses. Um, Timelines, basically alignment with the other business priorities, are all expressed as issues and concerns. In some cases where there is a heavier engagement between a business and an academic institution, there has to be an active involvement from academia. There are concerns around IP and confidentiality and those kind of things, which is not applicable to will because that's a one-sided avenue. You take over the student as a current employee. But if I wanted to distill everything down to the most common denominator is capacity. I'll just portray it as capacity. Employers do worry about the onboarding time, the supervision time, and whether students will ultimately be productive quickly enough, especially in AI-enabled environments, for example, where systems are complex, that would basically justify this investments in time. So you're looking at a 4-month engagement when we know in reality, at least when it comes to AI adoption or digital technology adoption, this is not a 4-month thing. It's an ongoing effort that does require scoping, implementation planning, monitoring, feedback gathering, refinement, much like any other project, and it needs constant, essentially, supervision. And the big question is whether a one-time engagement with a student would cut it. Again, with proper project scoping, going back to the earlier question about what are the elements of successful will, there is an opportunity to plan ongoing engagements with a student, obviously, with the same student to come back, or with a growing team of students who can come and do complementary work over time. If all of these are thought through beforehand, that could basically solve part of the problem, and that's the other side is also in the way we do our delivery of will, realizing this notion of capacity and capacity limitations. We are also trying more and more to deliver our will in a partnership-based environment where we actually hold hands and join forces with other organizations, like-minded organizations who offer complementary services to the employers, get them ready essentially to then fully benefit from these short burst placements. And also offering some e-learning opportunities, boot camps to get both the students and employers ready and in the right mindset before they step into this to these partnerships. That's what I would see, capacity.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It is always a challenge. I mean, it faces it when every time you bring on a new employee of any kind, when you're hiring somebody, there's always a training period. But I think within that, there's sometimes some misconceptions about youth talent. What are some of those misconceptions that you've seen, and are there ways that we can work to shift those narratives?
Um, Yeah, there are a number of misconceptions. So first of all, like I want to go and pivot back to maybe the first question, like how things are disrupted and how the baseline is raising, baseline of skills in the eyes of industry, to the point that they think what they require for a specific job is a mid-career professional with 15 years of experience, essentially to do something when in reality that's not the case. A lot of those individuals, while they have core understanding of the business environment, they lack a whole lot of cutting edge skills that the fresh graduates and the youth brings to the table. So that's the gap. But then a lot of that gap has also been compounded and intensified by this misconception around young people lack of professionalism or readiness for the job. That's the most that I hear. And it manifests itself in different ways and different forms and different shapes with different questions. For example, we often hear from the businesses, once we sell them on the idea of engaging with the youth through, say, a will program, they immediately ask, will I be on the hook after the fact? Should I basically maintain these individuals? So they're willing so far as trying and testing, but not offering any long-term commitment out of fear that these individuals may simply not work even before trying. I would put towards you that I think the reality is that the issue is often misalignment, not capability. The students may be very well highly skilled, just unfamiliar with the organizational context, ambiguity, or cross-functional work. When given the applied roles that are aligned with real business needs, going back again to those 4 core elements of a successful will, when they enter into a project that is well-defined, has deliverables, they have access as a result of that to decision makers in the company, to the real business environment. They're not siloed. We actually have seen that students often accelerate digital initiatives, actually. So quite the opposite of this misconception. They bring current skills, adapt quickly to the new tools, particularly digital tools. So I think the narrative with that in mind has to shift from youth are not ready to perhaps the systems need better bridge essentially between learning and work. I guess that's sort of the thing that needs to change. And I'm mindful of time as well. I guess with that, we arrive at a point, I guess that's a good pivot point, Nancy, that speaking of the systems, speaking of building better bridges between learning and work, and given that this sort of ecosystem design really matters, I wanted to turn to you with a couple of questions. I know at eCampus you have been developing some of those platforms, matchmaking platforms, to ensure there are more aligned, basically, activities. How do you see real opportunities complementing innovation projects like those supported through OSIP, the platform that you guys have at eCampus?
Yeah, OSIP is our Ontario Collaborative Innovation Platform, and it's designed with businesses in mind to try and take some of the work out for them to connect into the academic sector for collaborative projects. And within those collaborative projects, we see a lot of them move into long and full project collaborations with that academic institution. So OSIP is designed for that first stage where you're planning out a project. So it makes the connection between the business and the academic institution. They plan out a project, and then oftentimes we see them move on to other funding programs that do bring in students. And those work integrated learning opportunities that are provided through those research or innovation projects can be really valuable. They give a lot of skills to the student. They help to support the business as they take new products to market. And on the academic side, they often help bring in research funding through different funding programs like NSERC or MyTax or OCI or any of those big names that we're kind of used to hearing on that front. So that's where, on our side, we see those work integrated learning opportunities really complementing what we're already doing. And within that as well, we have things like the micro-credential portal and the national upskilling portal that help to fill some of those skills gaps through short duration training programs. So there's sort of a natural fit between the three.
Perfect. And obviously, we do have the partnership around Will Together, ICTC and eCampus Ontario. If you don't mind, perhaps talking a little bit mainly to the employers in the audience, how they can start engaging in Will through ICTC and eCampus Ontario channels, like maybe on the OSIP. Is there a process whereby they can start?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that their best bet for connecting with our team on that would be to connect with either Fung, my colleague who's in the audience with me, or myself. A couple of things that we offer with our support through the partnership with ICTC is we can help pre-screen the employers and make sure that they're eligible before they start creating their ICTC accounts and doing the actual applications. And that's just sort of like the first step. My colleague Fung, can you actually throw in the chat the email that they can connect with our team at if they're interested in going through our partnership program? And we've also got the OSIP.ai tools and platform actually linked in there as well. So on the OSIP.ai, we have a few different tools for employers and businesses, help to fill out things like grant applications, to connect in with other players within the ecosystem. That's sort of where our partnership lies right now. We're kind of working through how to streamline that, but the connecting with the eTalent at eCampus, if you don't have a student already, one of the things that we bring to the table as a consortium is that we have access to 57 different academic institutions in Ontario. We can help connect you to those institutions to find the students to do the work integrated learning and make that process a little bit easier.
Perfect. Thank you. I think we're nearing time. I wanted to be sure that we
Yeah.
leave some room for audience questions as well. I haven't been monitoring the chat, sorry, but seems like there's a lot of activities in there already.
There does seem to be some things popping up in the chat. I think Fung's been on a couple of them, but there's a few questions. As we let the audience kind of gather their thoughts heading into the question period, I want to bring up one of the ones that was sent in ahead of time because I think it was a really good question. So I don't know if it would be Aman or Eric, but maybe one of you could speak to how can pre-existing Employment Ontario services integrate things like work integrated learning outside of the insularity of post-secondary provided services. So right now, I think the question is that a lot of the post-secondary institutions have their existing relationships. How can things like Employment Ontario integrate will kind of in addition to how those post-secondaries are already integrating it?
That's a really great question. Happy to take a first step at it, and Eric, if you wanted to chime in as well, by all means. Well, of course, Employment Ontario and similar services across Canada, as much as I know about them, they already excel at a lot of support through basically career navigation, job readiness, employer engagement, and basically wraparound support around job seekers, essentially. Where I could see a potential for better integration is to start looking at better integrating Will into these activities, both bring some of these activities before placements to prepare learners, and then also after placements to support transitions. The way Will has been structured so far and to date is a little bit of a stopgap kind of a feeling that like it comes into the play partly as part of the academic curricula without sort of a wraparound long-term sort of continuous employment pathway in mind. The students come online, do their thing, just leave, and that's about it. And there are vacuums of support. If there was a most immediate opportunity, I would say just to merge them and then bring some level of those supports before the placements and then some level of those supports immediately after the placement. So students and employers walk into these placements ready with the right mindset to look for the right signals for employment, but also don't feel in a vacuum and left alone after the placement. I think that would be the most effective way. And on our side, our Will delivery partners, we do try to lobby our government funders and then basically talk to them, talk to the policymakers about some of the shortcomings, the core shortcomings of Will itself. From the eligibility perspective, there is also a gap right now. So you can access Will as a, say, second year student who's still far away from entering the job market or exploring basically the possibilities. But once you graduate, you're immediately ineligible. At the moment, I'm not aware of many programs out there who can actually support these new entrants to the markets and the fresh grads in their
Mhm.
job search. You're basically on your own after the fact. So we're trying to work with the governments to see if there is anything that could be done towards that by relaxing some of the eligibility criteria of Will or introducing new buckets. If that comes to life, then marrying those with Employment Ontario services could hopefully make a more fulsome wraparound support.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it is a gap that's been kind of seen across the board that recent graduate is not really covered under a lot of programs. I know
Yeah.
in Northern Ontario, we have a couple of programs through the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund that cover recent grads, but outside of that, I really don't know a lot of them. And I'm going to tap into a
Correct.
question that came in the Q&A section because it speaks to my heart as a Northern and rural girl. Um, would one of you be able to speak to any differences in will opportunities that you've seen between rural, remote, and urban regions? Are there successes, challenges, or unique barriers that need to be overcome in those?
Uh,
Eric, you want to take first a step? Go ahead.
yeah, actually, this I was thinking about this question, and I'm based in Alberta, based in Calgary, and one of the things a university in rural Alberta has done with some of their tech programs is the job market in that region. There is actually a lot of tech in this rural region, but it's there's not enough employers realistically to absorb all the graduates that are coming from some of their technical programs. So what they've done is set up a wraparound support living subsidy so students who want to pursue a co-op in, say, somewhere like Calgary or Edmonton or Vancouver, can get housing and whatnot, and be able to access that internship opportunity, even if without the wraparound supports, they might not be able to financially do it and get out of their not get out of the region, but you know what I mean, access other labor markets with some a modest amount of support for living expenses. So that's something that can help rural schools and rural job that are serving rural job markets help expand opportunities for students who might be looking at other markets.
That's a really interesting model. I know because I am from Northwestern Ontario, having grown up in a rural town, we kind of have some of the opposite problems where the learners end up going into the city to get an education, but there are job demands in those rural areas. So that might be an interesting kind of solution, but flipped, having that little bit of subsidy to go in and gain that experience in a little bit more of a rural location. So one of the other questions that came in the Q&A is if you're noticing whether any will opportunities mirroring the entry-level roles in the wider job market are increasingly requiring more sophisticated skills, and if you've seen any differences in the skills required by sector.
I can take a first stab at it because I particularly had to run one such a study into our historical delivery, looked at about 25,000 job descriptions for the for the roles that we have supported in the past 4 or 5 years. And yes, we do see some signals of increasing requirements and more sophisticated skills. Particularly in AI core and AI adjacent roles. We are seeing a very clear emergence of Gen AI, for example, and baseline understanding of Gen AI. We are seeing a migration from AI core skills. They're almost becoming baseline, like Python, LLM. But we are definitely seeing AI adjacent roles, meaning AI plus, like operation management, process optimization. Those things are starting to show a lot more in the standard of skills. I guess I did have basically one of those somewhere in my notes that I wanted to refer to, if I may, just to show an example. For example, yeah, process automation was the most frequently mentioned skill across AI infrastructure postings, appearing over 2,000 times in late 2025. So we see that almost worldwide reflected in our will opportunities as well, which is both a good sign and a bad sign. It's a bad sign. It makes it a little bit more difficult for entry level students. They have to get themselves to that level. But it's also a good sign because it also shows that employers are taking these positions more seriously. They want a lot more alignment with what the core business needs are. And as a result, these baseline expectations have also gone up. So hopefully if the students can deliver in such short burst environments of will, then they are very likely to be remaining with the teams as a full-time employee as well after the fact. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it did. I've got one last quick one from there and then we'll move on. We've had a couple of questions in the chat and actually in the Q&A about whether high school support for will is something that we can expect. So one of the questions was, how can will be implemented with high school students and are there resources to support that?
I can tell from the conversations that we're having with the government, although there is a lot of attention to K-12 activities and building skills at that level, we don't yet see any signals for will moving in that direction, unfortunately. But we can expect some basic AI literacy, essentially, cybersecurity, digital skills to be somehow emerging, likely from the AI national AI strategy that we are awaiting its announcements any day now. But if the thinking is particularly will, at least we haven't seen that within the broader student workforce placement program or SWIFT, essentially.
Yeah, I think we've seen the same thing on our end. It's largely been co-ops at the high school level as opposed to will placements that are paid or anything like that. So from there, I think we are moving into my two quick little slides. And I just wanted to speak a little bit more to the three programs that I mentioned earlier. And just to recap on them. So OSIP is that platform that we have, and the 3 QR codes will take you to the 3 different pages. OSIP being the Ontario Collaborative Innovation Platform, it is really designed with Canadian businesses in mind, and it's helping them tap into that Ontario academic ecosystem. Through the connections, they are connected to a subject matter expert who can help assess a particular innovation challenge that they're facing and provide a high-level project plan on how to go about solving that problem, with the intent of helping the business make an informed decision before undertaking a full-scale R&D project. And when they do undertake that R&D project, we do help connect them to different funding programs, which often do bring in students as a part of the research to help give the students the experience, but also to help the business develop their talent pipeline, because through the research project, they're working with students, they're gaining that experience, they're learning which ones are a good fit for their business and who has the skills that they require as they're moving forward. And then speaking of skills, that's where that micro-credential portal and the Skills for Jobs Canada portal come in. So the MC portal, or micro-credential portal, is actually Ontario's official upskilling platform, and it acts as a way for both job seekers and employers to identify short duration training courses offered through our member institutions. These courses are designed to help close skills gaps and facilitate transitions between academic and employment. So in the employer interface, you can actually contact the school directly and ask to be connected to students who've taken a particular course or have particular skills so that you're getting the right person for the position. And similarly, the Skills for Jobs Canada is kind of the national version of that. It provides an easy way to find training recommendations. It takes into account things like labor market data and industry growth trends to make those recommendations. So these are just a couple of the ways that you can kind of fill those gaps. So say you have a really great student through a will placement with ICTC, but that student's missing 1 or 2 skills. The short duration trainings can help fill that gap and make them the right fit for a long-term employment with your business. And then Carla, if we can go to the next slide. And speaking of that, this QR code will help you connect with us on how to take advantage of the work placement programs funding that we have in partnership with ICTC, but also with Magnet. And our team does things like, beyond just the initial screening for eligibility, we'll help you navigate the portals, and we provide contact to those member institutions to help find students. So a bit of wraparound supports to make that whole process easier for businesses. And that is kind of it on my side. I will pass it back to Carly, who is going to close us out.
Hey, thank you so much, Iman and Nancy. What a great, comprehensive discussion. For those watching, if you are interested in ICTC's Will Digital program or in OSIP, we put some links in the chat. Thank you everyone for attending today. We really appreciate your time and sticking with us till the end. If we did not get to your question live, we will reach out to you in follow-up, where we will be sharing the slide presentation as well. Have a great rest of your week and stay warm, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Thanks so much.